In this video, we're going to take a look at the item screen, specifically the general tab, and we're going to sort of hit the highlights as we go down the page. We're not going to cover every single button and checkbox, but we're going to cover the highlights, and some of these sections we'll make note of, but we will break out as their own separate videos to go more in depth. We're going to work from the top down, sort of left to right, and up here you see this grid button. Of course, to find an item, you can simply do the item lookup and type things in, but if you're already on this screen and you want to go to another item, you can just hit the grid button and then select an item to go look at next. The next thing we have here is the item ID for this number, the SKU number. It's an alphanumeric value. Here we have the clone button. That's where if you want to clone an item, change the item ID, and you can change other values as well. And a lot of times people will use this for something like lumber that you are going to create. Maybe lots of different types of lumber, but you're going to keep the same vendor information and a lot of the same information. You can just simply change the item ID, the description, and then hit save. Next here we have the TA ID, and this is simply the cost of this item, but backwards. So you'll find several places in Transact where you will see this identification, and it helps you as the employee know how much this item cost without explicitly showing the cost field. So, and these characters here in the middle are just filler, so the cost for this particular item is $4.96. Next we have the description, and this field right here can be up to 70 characters. We pull this information from the electronic catalog if that information is available, or you can edit and type in here whatever you would like. We have this button here that's grayed out in this particular option because we have to hit edit to check it, but no refunds is simply just that. When checked, the item is not allowed to be returned. Over in this section, we have allocated, on order, on hand, and available. This helps us take a look at what we have in the store and what we have sort of already accounted for. So let's take a look at these individually. Allocated is the total quantity of an item that is on an open sales order. So you can actually double click to see more information, what sales orders the allocations are accounted to, how many are for each, and the company that that sales order is associated with. And so that's what allocated means. On order is the total number of this particular item found on purchase orders. And again, you can double click to see the purchase order that that's associated with and how many we have in order. In this case is 10. The on-hand value is simply what is on the shelf. How many do we have physically on the shelf? And the available value, it represents the on-hand minus allocated. So if we have 15 allocated on sales orders that we know will be coming up soon, these people are going to be coming and we're going to invoice those out. We're going to ship out those sales orders. Then this 31 may be on the shelf, but I already have 15 accounted for. So really available, I only have 16. This section here is the display unit of measure, and we're going to do a whole separate video on units of measure, whether it be stock unit, purchase unit, display unit, etc. Here you can hit the QECAT button, and that pulls up the eCatalog information for your primary vendor on this side, and then if you have secondary vendors, that can be displayed here, and you can actually cycle through those with the next button. Next we have the item type and matrix. We're going to take a look at this in a totally separate video that breaks down more into detail what these fields mean. Here we have location, and typically aisles will be assigned a location code, and that could be edited and typed in here. If you hit the ellipses, you'll see additional inventory locations, and you can type in additional locations here. For reporting purposes, only the main location though is used. Catalog page is just that. It indicates the page number where the current item is located in the manufacturer catalog. Country of origin, again, pretty self-explanatory. Price book sequence, and the price book section here would be its own separate video on price books to explain what you would see here. This resellable checkbox is important because when this is checked, you can see this item at point of sale, at the ring sale screen, in purchase orders and sales orders. If we were to edit this and uncheck this box, this item would no longer be able to be found at the point of sale, POs, and SOs. Now you may deselect the resellable if it's something that you don't sell anymore and you need to keep that item in your inventory for historical data purposes, but you don't want people to accidentally find the item and sell it. Here we have the taxable button to select if this item is a taxable item, and you can change the tax table here by hitting this drop down menu, and you'll notice that it changes if it's non-tax to different options. The tax table fields are created under System, Support Files, Sales Tax menu. The Special Order checkbox indicates that this item is a special order item, and it won't show up on your reorder reports unless you specifically choose to see those special order items. So if this is something we're not going to order all the time, we would check Special Order. Not Available checkbox, you would check if this item was no longer available from the vendor. Checking Not Available and unchecking Resellable essentially discontinues the item in your inventory. It's still there, it's not deleted, so the history of that item is still there. But that would be a way to get it to where your employees aren't accidentally going to order the item, or they're not accidentally going to sell the item if it no longer exists on your shelves. The stock alert process here will be its own separate video. When no mass pricing is checked, that means this item is protected from automatic price adjustments within the mass price program. This also, when checking this box, denotes that when we run eCatalog price control, that these types of items will be filtered within that process as well. This no third party box basically indicates that this item will be immune to exporting and importing to a third party program like Margin Master to adjust the price. So if you check this item will not be affected by that process. If we check for warranty info, this item, when rang up at the point of sale, will prompt the cashier to enter in a customer so that the warranty information for that customer can be kept up with for this particular item. Checking this box will force a load ticket to print every time this item is rang out. Variable costing is used for generally non-stocked items, and we see this a lot with something like nuts, bolts, and screws. So the reason to use the variable costing is if you have something like nuts, bolts, and screws, that you may not have a cost associated with that item, but if you sell enough of it, you're not making 100% profit. So you want your GP percentage to be accurate. So if you check this variable costing, you can do a percentage cost for this particular item so that when you sell it, let's say you know that the cost is 40% of the retail price. And so it sort of helps keep a check on those types of things that you sell that don't have a fixed cost, especially, again, like nuts, bolts, and screws. Down here in this Get section, you can check to get the description, quantity, price, or salesperson when this item is rang out at the point of sale. Now again, this is helpful for something like nuts, bolts, and screws. A lot of stores will check Get description, quantity, and price for an item like that. So they could type in description, washers, quantity for, and then the price. Labeling here is the types of labels that can be printed for this particular item. We're going to hop up here to this section now and talk about the decimals. If you have something that's to be cut or partial of amounts sold, you may want to bump this decimal up to 2 or 3. But typically this decimal is indicating a change to the available values. So if you have a roll of chain or something like that you sell by the rolls or by the foot, you may want to bump this decimal up to 2 or 3, whichever you prefer. Otherwise, if it's just a standard single type item, you would set the decimal to 0. If you want to put in the height, width, or length, or weight of the item, you can place that here. In this green section here, we have everything to do with units of measure: stock unit, purchase unit, the order quantity. Again, that is going to be a completely separate video about units of measure, where we kind of dive into that a little bit more in depth. The mins and maxes for your items are set here. And again, this idea of mins and maxes and the reorders, we're going to do a separate video for that as well, because it deserves to be looked at a little bit deeper than we're going to do in this moment. Over here we have the class code area. The class or department is set here. It's used for advanced lookup and reporting. The code It's just kind of another way to delineate that, to narrow it down. For example, we have stores that, the class may be building materials, and the code, they wanted to separate the green shingles from the brown shingles. So they have GRS for green, BRS for brown. And it basically just helps with the reporting and narrowing down those items so you can really see what you are moving product-wise. And the same thing for the final items and the sub-fine. You can again narrow those things down even further. Seasonal, you can have different types of seasons. In this example, there's Christmas, fall, grass, Halloween, summer, and you can set those up in IC support files seasons. And so you can make this a seasonal item, which will help you determine when to order that item. And when you run your recommended reorders and things like that, you can know, okay, this is an item that we only order for Christmas time, for example. The fee item has to do with particular items that have a fee associated with them. A lot of times in certain states that would be paint, or if it's a battery, maybe a core charge. And the fee is its own SKU, and then that SKU is associated to the relevant items that need that fee associated. The last physical here is when the last physical inventory was taken of this item. The entered field indicates when this item was entered into inventory. And then here we have a comment line that you can use as an internal comment for this item, the manufacturer of this particular item, the model number for the manufacturer for this item. And here in this orange section, we have the retail price, the cost, the GP percentage, and the discussions of pricing, which we will cover in a separate video.